Welcome to the LA Business Podcast, a forum for business owners and senior executives to share the experiences about the elements that drive their success. Your host is Robert Brill, CEO of BrillMedia.co.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the LA Business Podcast. Today our guest is Dave McKean, CEO of Sherpa Chai. Sherpa Chai is out of Boulder, Colorado, and the maker of specialty chai concentrates. Thanks for being with us today.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
So this is an interesting story. So tell us a little bit about your chai and where you get it from, and you have a great story.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of the reason why I got involved with this, to be honest with you, is that story. So the founder of originally of Sherpa Chai is Pemba Sherpa. And Pemba has a restaurant here in Boulder that he's operated for about the last 20 years called Sherpa's Adventure Restaurant. It's a Nepalese restaurant, but also specializes to a large degree in Sherpa recipes and so forth, along with Nepalese stuff. And he had, for the last 20 years, been serving the tea, the chai, which he grew up on in his little village in the Kumbo, which is the valley that is where Everest is. And this is a recipe that it's generations old. I mean, he said his mom made it, his grandma made it, his great-grandma made it. It goes back for beyond he can remember. And everybody kept telling him, this is amazing chai. You should bottle this. You should bottle it. So about 4 years ago, he started bottling it. And now, Sherpa Chai is distributed mostly in Colorado, but also to the states bordering Colorado, as well as now in Pacific Northwest, in Oregon and Washington, a little bit in Idaho, Montana, Alaska, et cetera, in grocery stores. But the Sherpa Chai is now grown to be even on the national rankings in the category that we occupy, which is a shelf-stable concentrated tea category for grocery store chains. We're now number 6 in the nation, even though we're only distributed in a pretty small number of places. So it's been growing great, and that's a testament to Pemba's mother's recipe, or whatever it is. So, but then the story behind Pemba is also really kind of an exciting and interesting tale. So
you've been with the business since 2019. What was your charge when you came on to Sherpa Chai?
Yeah, well, that's actually kind of a funny story. So I had a software business years ago, which I sold and then moved to Colorado because I'd gone to school out here as a student in university years and always felt like I one day would move back. And so after selling the other software business, it was like time to go. So I had a little office. I was basically retired. I was a lacrosse coach for my sons, and now they're off in college, so I didn't have anything to do. So I had a little office nearby here, and the guy who owned the building actually has a small ownership in Sherpa Chai, and he kept talking about it and telling me how great it was. And I actually personally don't drink a lot of tea or coffee, or I didn't. So I would take the bottles home and give them to my family, and my wife and daughters would drink this, and they were drinking it like it was going out of style. And so finally, Todd had given me a bottle of the newest flavor back a couple of years ago in February, 64-ounce bottle of tea. I brought it home 1:30 in the afternoon. The next morning, I'm getting ready to leave, and my daughter turns around at the refrigerator and he goes, "Dad, can you get another bottle of this?" I'm like, 64 ounces gone in less than 12 hours. I was like, all right, I gotta meet Pemba. So I met Pemba and heard the story, and I was like, you know what, this is such a cool tale. I just want to be involved. So I invested a little bit of money in the company just to be part of it. And then shortly, a couple of months later, we had a kind of a shareholders meeting, and the other shareholders asked if I wanted to be CEO, and my response was no. And then they said, how about if you could just kind of do a little bit of an acting CEO for a while, because we need some help. And I was like, all right. And I fell in love with it. And immediately after I got involved, I said, all right, Pemba, if I'm going to do this, I got to go to Nepal. So I went to Nepal with Pemba. We went trekking in Annapurna. We went to the village he grew up in. I have met countless Sherpas now, and I have just fallen in love with not only the product, but also the mission. And the mission is really to give back to the people in Nepal and in the Sherpa community, but also in the Nepalese community, in the tea community where our tea is grown, which is just out below the kind of the mountains of the Himalayas. And I've met just the most amazing and outstanding people, and so I think that's part of it. That's the driving thing for me.
And you end up being a cultural ambassador for the Nepalese people, whether you like it or not. At the end of the day, if you know what a Sherpa is, you're automatically going to be consuming just a little bit of part of the culture through the food, through the drink.
Yeah, it's so true. And the culture is an amazing culture. I mean, for many years in later life, my wife and I were vacationing and spending time in Italy before Sherpa, and I was thinking I would end up maybe actually getting a place in Italy and spending half the year there after the kids are all gone, right? And I went to school in England for 2.5 years for grad school. I lived in Germany for 4 years. I mean, I've traveled a lot and lived in other places, but Italy was the place that we were going back to all the time. And my wife and I loved it. And all my friends are like, "Why Italy?" And they'd be like, "Well, it's the history, it's the culture, it's the food." And now that's all BS. That's not it at all. It was the people. That's why I would go back to Italy all the time. And when I came back from the first trip to Nepal, I turned to my wife and I said, the Nepalese are Italians on steroids. They are the most friendly people I have ever met in my life. I have never been more welcomed anywhere I have ever been, and so that's a big driving force there.
So what were you when you came on? What's your mission here with the company? What do they want you to do?
Well, obviously, I think we've got a great brand, we've got a great story, and we've got an amazing product. And now I've done countless blind taste tests against all the competitors out there. So I know there's no question that we've got the best product on the market taste-wise. And I've heard that from countless people, but even people who are pretty influential in our space. So for example, the number one chai tea company in North America is Oregon Chai. It was started by a woman named Heather, who is actually now on our board of advisors. She sold the company in 2004 and has gone on now to start another tea company, a Thai kind of tea company. Mm-hmm. And in one of my early conversations with her, we were talking about flavor profiles and this, and she's like, "Oh, you don't have to say it." I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about, Heather." She goes, "Don't make me say it." And I was like, I really didn't know what she was saying. She goes, "We all know Sherpa Chai is a far better product than Oregon Chai." And so the number one chai tea company's founder is calling our product's taste profile the number one. And I'm like, I agree with her, of course. And I think there's a lot of validity in the product. And that comes from the ingredients, the care that is going on in the warehouse behind me here today, where all of the guys working back there are Sherpa, and they are brewing the tea as authentic as it comes. The tea is an authentic Nepalese black tea blend that is actually grown on a plantation in Nepal for us specifically. And so, yeah, I think that all plays into the product's quality, and that delivers the best tasting chai that we can.
And so tell us about the types of growth and marketing that you're doing to achieve that growth. Like, the key thing that we want to learn on this podcast is how do companies grow and scale? And so are you primarily selling through e-commerce, through retail, or restaurants? Like, what's your distribution?
Good questions. Okay, so let's predicate all of these answers with the fact that I'm a complete novice to the CPG world, the consumer packaged good industry, and I have been, really and truly drinking from a fire hose for 1.5 years as I learned so much new stuff. But I will say that, when I got involved, we had our two main revenue streams were the grocery distribution chain and the coffee shops, almost all exclusively in the Colorado area. And coffee shops represented about 45% of our revenues last year. Of course, with COVID, that went from 45% to less than 10%. Yeah. And so we have made a very concerted effort to work with our grocery store distributors, and also to expand our grocery store distribution through sales efforts to add to that, to pick up on the lost revenue. In addition to that, we began, when it became apparent that this was not going to end in the spring, I began implementing a bigger e-commerce effort for us. And to that end, we, in the early, let's say this time last year, we were probably doing $700 to $800 a month in e-commerce. And so what we did is we first of all built a new website, redid our store, redid our pricing, worked to configure pricing that included our freight. We found in the early, like when I started looking at this in the spring, that we were having tons and tons of abandoned carts from our online store, and that we felt was probably due to the fact that the shipping costs were too much. So what we did is we kind of baked a lot of that into our pricing to make that a lot more palatable to the online customer. And the net result is that we have grown our online sales to, call it $1,500 a month type of thing. I also then brought in a gal who's working as our social media specialist, expanding our social media platforms to include LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter. Prior to this, we were just basically a little bit of Facebook and a little bit of Instagram, but also to really step up our Instagram and Facebook efforts and make our ads a lot more kind of pertinent to our customers. And so after doing a lot of analysis, they came back and had the plan that we were going to put a big push behind, for example, the Black Friday, Cyber Monday week. And so we did a little bit of promo to that and created all kinds of tracking codes. And then we did email blasts on Friday, Wednesday, and Cyber Monday. And our team did a great job. I mean, they managed to generate almost $15,000 in online sales during that 1 week, which is
Black Friday week.
That's more than a 10x monthly revenue return for us. So we're going to be doing a lot more of that in the new year. In addition to that, we also have now begun redoing our Amazon profile, and we have a consultant to help with Amazon so that we can grow our sales there. So there's a lot of e-commerce effort going into the future. And then additionally, it's a lot of effort continuing on the grocery store front. We've also hired some salespeople to hit the coffee shops. Even though they're not open, they've been kind of in and out open, and some of them are open for just window service. So we've actually added a bunch of, we've been managing to add 10 to 15 new coffee shops a month now with the sales guys that we have. And they're also targeting a lot of the small grocery store chains that would be outside of our usual distribution channels. So a lot of those efforts, our net result is that sales are up overall. Like to have seen them up a lot more, but still up overall. So that's good.
I'm on your website right now. What is the flavor? What is your most popular flavor?
The spicy. The traditional and spicy are by far the two most popular flavors for us.
Okay, traditional and spicy. Okay, interesting. I didn't got it. Decaf, spicy.
We have a honey vanilla, which is actually made with a local honey that's grown here in Boulder by a local bee grower. And then we have our turmeric ginger, which is a little bit different, and that is the newest flavor, and it has been growing pretty steadily. So very happy about that too.
And so during COVID, you pivoted away from retail. Well, the world pivoted away from retail.
Right. We didn't pivot; they forced us.
Yeah. If I buy online, will you ship anywhere in the country, or are there specific areas where you'll ship?
We will ship anywhere in the lower 48.
Got it. Amazing.
So right now we have the cost to ship to, because we're shipping liquid. I mean, it's expensive to ship to Hawaii and Alaska. It makes it very difficult for the consumer because it costs more to ship it than it does to buy the bottle.
Tell us about some interesting learning curve that you experienced, or something that you learned as you came on into CPG that you find works. You certainly mentioned that, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, you 10x your sales. That's fantastic. was the learning there, for example, that much more concerted marketing effort going full
Yeah, I will
force?
say
Yeah,
CPGs are really interesting. The distribution channels are complicated and certainly hard to navigate. I am very grateful that I have Suzanne, who is a consultant I found, who knows this and has spent 30 years in this industry. So she's done a great deal to educate me and continues to on a daily basis. Understanding the different channels, whether it's Mulu, mass, natural, grocer, and then of course, you know, um, you have so many different types of retail distribution channels, and the distributors all have different kinds of, things that they require from you, different
right.
kinds of pricing breaks, MCBs, scanbacks, TPRs, all these various. I mean, it goes on, and everybody keeps telling us we need brokers to do this, and I am resistant on the broker right now because A, it costs a lot of money, and B, I think what you do with a broker is you're basically, substituting that for your own sales force.
Right.
And I don't know that they necessarily have Sherpa Chai's best interest when they go to meet with a grocery store, as opposed to, but it is sometimes challenging to get meetings with these people. But I think our guys have done a really good job of forging relationships especially in the natural chain grocers. And so that's a big deal,
I
right now.
imagine, I
Sorry.
imagine direct to consumer, you could, there's so many brands in the marketplace right now who don't have retail distribution that are doing really well. Like I think, with the concerted Facebook effort and Amazon effort, man, you can go direct to consumer and not have to deal with all the intermediaries.
I agree with you, and I think that's got to be a big push for us, and that's why we're making this effort that I just described, um, to get there.
Yeah, I'm looking at your Facebook ads right now. It looks like you're supporting local Whole Foods and Sprouts and
Hmm.
natural choices who are natural grocers.
Yeah,
I'm
natural
not
grocers.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with them, but I'm familiar with the other two. Yeah, and I imagine they've asked you to support their distribution with advertising.
Well, you know what? Here's the good thing about being as small as we are at this point. They actually impose, when you get to a certain level, they impose required advertising. We haven't gotten to that level yet, which is good because it's not inexpensive, right?
Yeah.
But we have been doing a lot more of that on our own effort, and that drives brand awareness in the grocery stores there. So, for example, our distributors came to us in early in the summer, June, and they were looking at the same data that I had been looking at, the sales data that are collected. There's a couple of different companies that we buy data from, and the data was outstanding for our product. And so they had been seeing the same data. So they actually came to us and said, we want to carry your product to the grocery stores, to the Fred Meyer grocery stores in Pacific Northwest, which they launched beginning of September. So it took a few months to get it all into the pipeline and get it up there and get it distributed. The biggest fear I have in that area is then these people, they don't find our product at their local coffee shop like most of the people in Colorado would. So they're not familiar with us. So why would they know to buy it on the shelf? I've been pleasantly surprised. They've been buying it gangbusters. But we have done quite a lot of geofence targeting on our Facebook ads and our Instagram to those specific areas around those specific grocery stores, so that we can hopefully drive some brand awareness. So people will see it on the shelf and go, "Oh, I know what that is," and they'll want to.
Tell us about, I mean, that's a great tactic. One of the things that we do a lot of is that hyper local geofencing. And I'm always interested to understand how do marketers, how do companies learn about that? Like, is the consultant that you're working with someone who kind of like clued you in, or did you just innately know that? Like, how does that come about in a conversation?
Well, I have been reading a lot of books on social media marketing.
Okay.
So,
Do you listen to any like news personalities? Like, I think for someone who has the wherewithal, like you can listen to someone like Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, and then just implement exactly what he's saying. Like, do you pay attention to any of that stuff?
I have started recently following some folks on different types of podcasts. but to be honest with you, I have always, I fall back on the, I'm reading books every single day and always looking for new books and new recommendations. And so, there has been a little bit of that. And then on top of that, I, 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 I did talk to some marketing people over the last 6 months, a whole bunch actually, and we talked about various different ways to do this, and the geofencing was always part of the campaigns that the marketing companies that I spoke to wanted to utilize. The unfortunate thing for us is that we got to do this on the cheap because we just don't have the budgets for these. I mean, a lot of these marketing companies want, retainers of $10,000, $12,000 and expect to get paid $60,000 a year, and that's just not in the budget for Sherpa Chai at this point. So we're kind of figuring out how to do this as best we can on the cheap, to carry us until we can afford to hire some better consultants if we need to.
We should talk after that, because one of the things that after this show, because one of the things that we do is really the thesis is help Fortune 500 brands help brands advertise like the Fortune 500 without actually spending a fortune.
I love that idea.
There's that opportunity that in that delta, because these tools are so incredibly powerful and they're not incredibly difficult to use. And
yes.
And for a person like you who clearly knows what's going on, it's like there's a whole world of opportunity in these tools.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so COVID, retail kind of like shrunk dramatically, e-commerce built up dramatically, marketing is working, which is always a great sign.
Yeah.
Retail is growing. What are your key initiatives for 2021?
Well, I think right now, we kind of all are waiting to see what happens, right? I mean, I have every confidence that the vaccines will help to kind of alleviate everybody's, overall concern, and hopefully that means coffee shops can open up again, and we can actually get our salespeople in front of people that are, going to carry the product to the customer on a that kind of relationship. And then, in light of that, of what we did with our social media stuff over Black Friday, Cyber Monday week, I had the team put together a plan for a campaign once a month for a week. And we're going to create those campaigns around various days. So the first one we're going to kick off is it's not 2020 ! 2020 is over. We're done, and hopefully this is it, and then we're going to put an email blast around that and some discount codes and push and see what we can get. Then we're going to do a Valentine's Day, and then we've got an Easter thing, and we've got a Mother's Day, Father's Day, then there's National Chai Day. Didn't you know there's a National Chai Day? There is in June. Yeah, so we got a whole bunch of stuff laid out every month for the next 12 months, and I'm hoping that through the extra revenue lift from the e-commerce, as well as our continued growth in the distribution channels and grocery stores, that'll carry us until we can get some coffee shops back in business, and we can actually send our sales guys to Seattle and Portland and sign up coffee shops there. So that's our hope and plan for the future.
Do you have any consideration for brand building as you think about your business? Because I think in many ways building brand is the key differentiator between a good company and a great company. You have a feeling.
I definitely need to. I mean, brand building is certainly very important to me, and we also have been working on a couple of other charitable campaigns. We've been in talks, and we're trying, although it's very hard with COVID to know if we can make this happen. But there's a Sherpa named Kami Rita. He has summited Everest 24 times. He holds the world's record. He has said that he wants to summit a 25th time. And when we talked about it, and it was, why do you want to do that? It was for the Sherpa people, for my community, the Sherpa people, and Nepal. And so what I have created is a scholarship fund for the Sherpa people that will allow for, basically for the kids of Sherpas to go to secondary school which is the differentiator for them, right? If they can go to school in Kathmandu for high school, for example, they're very likely to end up being able to go to university in Kathmandu. That changes their lives in dramatic ways. And I know this personally from all the connections through friends and their children that we've seen this. And then we're also working, so by sponsoring Kamirita, we're going to raise even more awareness, we hope, and get a big press campaign behind, and then raise more money to do this kind of charitable work. And we also have another plan. There's a community center and urgent care center that we've been looking to build in a place called Budabare, which is our head brewer. Dealey comes from this little village, and this has been a dream of his life. And he said, when I retire, I'm going to go back and build a community center. And I was looking at him 6 months ago, and I'm like, why do we have to wait till you retire? Let's get on this now. So we're working to get something like that done too. And I think all of those kind of things are good for our brand. Mm-hmm. And Pemba takes a lead on all that kind of stuff as well. So, and it's a lot of fun to do, to be honest with you. So,
well, whenever you can connect with people, right? Yeah. Like I think that the best companies, the best organizations really have people at the heart and soul of the organization. If you're helping people and you're making a difference in the world, like, people tend to like you.
I agree. Better. Well, you know what? I mean, in all honesty, it gives more meaning to what you do, right? I mean, yeah. I know. I mean, I was talking about this ages ago with my with a good friend who's built companies, and he's a super smart guy, and his comment was something to the effect of, you want to save turtles? That's fine. That's not me. And I'm like, I think that is me. I mean, not save turtles, but I think building, helping these kind of people, and now I've met so many of them and been there and gotten to know them, and it's personal now in a lot of ways. And I really, I see how it can change lives. I mean, truly change lives. So, I mean, Dealey adopted a girl when this is almost 20 years ago. He adopted, and this is kind of, they all do this. I mean, last summer, Pemba adopted another family because the dad has stage 4 cancer and is not likely to last a few more months. And so he adopted these 3 young girls, got them an apartment in Kathmandu, got them into secondary schools, got them the uniforms to go to school, and supply them with their food and a staple so that they can live. And my wife is like, I want to do that. I want to adopt some kids. So we're thinking about doing the same thing. But Dealey adopted this girl who came from a caste that would never allow her to go to school. And so he adopted her 20 years ago, and today she's, graduated university. She went to nursing school, and she's a nurse at the hospital in Kathmandu, married with a little girl of her own, and that's life changing.
That's amazing.
So, yeah,
I love that. Are any new flavors coming through over the next year, or are you going to stick with the current?
I think I want to stick with the current for now. I get a lot of pressure and a lot of pushback, especially from the sales guys. They're always like, can't we do a unsweetened spicy? And can't we do and it's like, at some point you got to fall back on the old adage of what Henry Ford said, right? If they asked my customers what they wanted, they would have told me they wanted faster horses.
That's right.
I mean, right now, I think we've got enough different kind of flavor profiles, at least to wait until after COVID before we can start thinking about doing additional ones at this point. Just, we got to some degree, a little bit of hunker down and make sure that we are doing everything we can to sell what is our core business. I've been looking at a lot of other companies in our space who did things like try to get into RTDs, ready to drinks, and didn't have a lot of success with it. And it may end up being the undoing of the company, because it's a lot of capital to go into creating new flavors or canning product, et cetera. These are all things we've looked at and things we want to do, but not in this day and age with the way things are with COVID. I think we need to stay focused, do what we know we do best, make that work, grow that business, then we can expand.
Well, I've seen other companies do that as well, and I can tell you from our own experiences, like it's really tough to, like, everything takes 3 times as long as you'd want it to take. That's the first challenge. And then secondly, within the world of COVID, you have supply chain challenges, restaurants are my particular experience has been like restaurants that I love. They're changing their menu to cull down uh, the the plates that just aren't selling as much, and they stick to the basics. Like who needs 5 variations of red shirts at Target when you can have 2 and sell equally as many or almost as many? Like you got to get back to basics a little bit. And I think, I have a YouTube channel called the playlist is called The Great Reset, because I think there's such an opportunity to change and adapt and iterate for the better, the way we do business, the way we live our lives. It's great to see that you're like sticking to what works.
All right. Well, I mean, at this point, you kind of got to do that, right? I mean, it's what's going to create the most revenue to keep this whole thing afloat and keep it working while we we have, in the year and a half that I've been here, we've added a lot of staff, and we've added a brand new warehouse facility, and all of this is actually now, frankly, we're outgrowing it, so I got to look for another one, which is good, but it's a little risky, and when cash flows are as they are because of the issues that we run into with the COVID stuff. So
Yeah.
I think we just make do for a lot of this until we can things loosen up and we can actually begin to really grow our revenues substantially.
So Dave, is there anything else you want to shout out? I have the URL as sherpachai.com. If people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
I would say shoot me an email at Dave, DAVE, at sherpachai.com. And I welcome any questions or inquiries, and any other folks that have a similar business who have questions or have any ideas. I think we live and breathe by doing things like this, by talking to other business people, by learning from them, by hearing what worked for them. You just can't do this in a vacuum. You need a lot of good people around you, and you need a lot of good people giving you good feedback.
Absolutely. Dave McKean, CEO at Sherpa Chai. Thanks for being with us today, Dave.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate your time.